Holy smokes, you guys, welcome. It is Tuesday, September 13th, 2022, and my name is Rachel. You can find me on Instagram as Woolen Spinning and here on YouTube as youtube.com/Rachel Smith. It is so good to see you guys. It has been a long time. We last streamed on August 16th, so I've been off for basically a month. I would not be lying if I said that I did not need a break. I needed a chance to kind of recoup and, do all the things, just mellow out, get my mojo back, rest, all that kind of stuff. And it is so nice to be back. I hope that you're all doing really well. I hope that you find something here that you're excited about and that you are wanting to talk about. Chat is going crazy. Like, you guys must have started chatting early. I was actually in the middle of just putting final touches on the show and just making sure everything would roll with like this, that everything would work. And then I received a couple of texts about a few things that I had to respond to. And then all of a sudden it was 1 o'clock. So I don't know how that happens. It goes very quickly. But it's really, really good to see everybody. I don't want to start listing people in the chat because I will forget your names. But if you're watching this later and you're not sure what chat is, just make sure that you turn on the live chat and you can see the live chat replay that was going on at the same time as the show was being streamed. So like I said, it's really, really good to see everybody because we've been sort of off for a month, and sort of I took the break. I usually take some time off in August, and I usually take some time off again in December and again in March. It's kind of the 3 times a year that I take some family time. It does feel like a long time, and in some ways I feel like I haven't been doing very much. And then I kind of looked around at what I've got going on, and it's like, oh, I actually did a few things. So that was kind of cool. And it's nice to just sit and look back at what I've worked on and feel like I have some stuff to share that I'm excited to share about. So for those who've been around for a really long time, you guys already know this, but for those who are just checking out the show, who are just coming here for the first time, we talk mostly about hand spun here. We talk about spinning, we talk about yarn, and we talk about using our hand spun and using our yarn in our projects, whether that's knitting, weaving, or otherwise, crochet, lots of other things. People here are excited about hand spun. They want to work with their hand spun, and we want to figure out ways of incorporating our hand spun in more and more and more of our projects. So it's a pleasure to host you all here. I thought that we've done lots of big trips over the years, me and the kids, and obviously my husband. He's usually the mastermind behind them. I'm not very good at organizing that kind of stuff. My husband's really good at organizing. I'm very organized on the day-to-day stuff. And him and I were chatting back in July, late July. My in-laws were talking about coming out here. We live in just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, and here in Canada, and my in-laws were talking about coming out right now. They were supposed to be here right now. They hadn't seen the kids for 3 years, and the last time they saw the kids was at my dad's funeral, so it wasn't under great circumstances. And then of course everything shut down, and we haven't been able to get there for lots of different reasons. So a couple of times we talked about going and it just didn't work out. So as the summer went on, they kind of started making noises about coming, but it was sort of tricky with schedules and the kids' school and whatnot. And Mike and I talked more and more about what we were going to do. And we actually finally I said to Mike, I think we should go there. We need to see your sister. She had right as the pandemic hit, she gave birth. So we hadn't met our nephew yet, and we hadn't seen our niece in 4 years, now. And I said to Mike, I think we need to go. So we decided at the last minute, and we didn't have any camping booked and any big trips booked. So at the last minute, we decided to hop on the plane and go. So let me just flip cameras here for just a sec. And while I'm talking, you guys can watch this screen. You'll have something interesting to watch and something interesting to look at as I go along. So we took the kids to my in-laws' place. They have a farm. It's in rural Ontario. It's east of Toronto. And then at the end of the trip, we actually took them back into Toronto for a few nights. So we took them to a Toronto FC game. They were playing Montreal, so it was fantastic. This is the kids with my niece at the subway afterwards to get back to the hotel. And one of the things that we found coming back to Toronto after not having been there for 4 years, because we hadn't been to Toronto proper for 4 years, it's really easy to get plant-based food. It's not necessarily whole food, but it's plant-based, so that was really fun. The kids went up the CN Tower. Jenny and I got together one morning. We were able to get together for about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. It was fantastic. Yes, we really do look like sisters in real life. And I dragged Nora to Romney one afternoon. We got there, we only actually got there about half an hour before closing. The kids actually weren't feeling 100%. I think they were so tired by then, and Romney has not changed at all. It's exactly the same. I was sneezing within about 2 seconds of being in there from all the dust. And then our final night, we had a kind of a fancy dinner at one of the fresh restaurants that's right on Spadina, which was fantastic. This was us heading back to the airport the morning of our trip back, and the kids were troopers because, of course, federally regulated buildings, you have to wear masks. So on the Via, we were wearing masks, and of course in the airport. This was our 1:45 a.m., so 2 a.m. wake-up call to get to the airport because Vancouver was having big security problems, and James finally crashed that day at about 2 p.m. Toronto time. So he just finally kind of let it go. Anyways, just some fun photos to show you guys. I know it's really fun to catch up and sort of let you guys know, sort of see a little bit of a personal window into our life and what we're doing. James drove the ride-on mower to mow the 31 acres of my father-in-law's place, and James also drove the tractor a few times, and he just had a blast. So thank you for watching. It's sort of just a view into our life and some of the things that we do that are like non-spinning and knitting related. And it's fun to be able to show you guys a little bit about what we do and our life. So I've got lots to share with you today. I did pull a big warp off of the loom. It's my M's and O's here. We won't go into too much detail about this because it's not washed and finished, and I thought I would save it for a Welford Weaves episode. The kids are actually back to school on Monday. We go back quite a bit later because of the type of school that they're in. So they go back on Monday, so I'm hoping to talk about that with you guys. The big things that I wanted to share with you is a little neck scarf that I made in just a moment of inspiration, and my Metamorphic, which you guys can see over here in the background. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So in a moment of inspiration from Kristen, actually, of all people, because she's been making some really cool stuff lately that I've been really excited about. And I think I saw her in the chat. Let me just have a quick look. She said she's driving to drop Adeline, her daughter, off at dance. So it has been a long time. Kristen went on to say it feels like it's been so long, but it's been a month. So Kristen had posted in the Slack channel some really beautiful photos. She's working on a couple of different projects right now that I just felt really inspired by, and it's been a long time since I felt inspired. It's been even longer since I have felt inspired to pick up the knitting needles. And I think what happened was I knit a couple of sweaters back to back that I felt like I was working through stash yarn and just trying to get through stash and stuff that was getting old. And because this stuff had been stored for a long time, they weren't necessarily colors that I was excited about anymore. It wasn't necessarily stuff I was really like, yes, I want to knit this, but I also still really wanted the sweaters. And I think I kind of pushed through and made myself work on that stuff and do that. And it just kind of left me feeling really tired after, and left me feeling like, oh, and since then I just haven't really felt super excited about knitting, which is kind of sad, but it happens. So Kristen had posted in the Slack channel these little neck scarves that are just like the cutest things, and she had posted the link and the pattern that she had used for hers out of her Handspun. And so I went looking and sort of went hunting on Ravelry to see what I could find and what patterns were out there that I thought were kind of neat. And part of the reason why this kind of spoke to me was because they're so small. They're so little. Look at how small they are. So this little ditty is the Sophie scarf by Petite Knits. And Kristen had posted hers. Let me see if I can tie it on my neck for you guys. Kristen had posted hers, just kind of tied around her neck. And I made there's two sizes for this pattern. Kristen made a different size, but the one that Kristen made a different pattern, but the pattern that she made is equally like modifiable. But this one is two sizes, small and large, and one is about 31 inches and the other one is about 40 inches, or 80 centimeters and 102 centimeters. And so I grabbed just a little ball of yarn, and you guys probably recognize this. This is the Jacob Breed and Color Study from last fall, so a year ago. And I had spindle spun all of this stuff, and it was my first support spindle spun yarns, but then I plied it on the wheel. And I think why these little scarves kind of, resonated with me so much was because they're quick. I knit it in just a few days. It's garter stitch, so there was no purling to aggravate my hand. It's I-cord on the edges, and I'll show you guys under the other camera in a minute, sort of the close-up. It didn't really matter if the gauge was quite right. I haven't washed this yet, but I'm fully expecting it to look really lovely once it's washed and finished, like once it kind of fills in the little gaps and holes and stuff. But one of the things that I don't really love about the big shawls and the big scarves and stuff is you need a lot of yarn, and they're really big. And here, I know I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but like we have to wear rain jackets all the time. Like there's a reason why it's called Raincouver. And because of the rain and because it's cold, you need something up around your neck. So a lot of people end up wearing like turtlenecks, sweatshirts with hoods that they can have under their rain jackets. And it sounds like a really silly problem to have. And it's like, well, just wear a sweater and a jacket. The thing is like you really need the layers. And so, yeah, I thought if I knit a few of these, I could throw them under my rain jacket, and they just work so much better than a big bulky scarf or shawl. Like I get why they're kind of gaining momentum. They're kind of like a little trend right now that's going on in the knitting world on Ravelry. I've noticed them popping up on Instagram, and I've noticed them popping up in like little patterns and stuff. So anyways, it's super, super, super cute. Little I-cord, and thank you so much. Sarah says it looks great on me. I need this in 3 colors. Exactly. Like I feel like I need like a black one, and I need a gray one, and I've got like this, fun kind of Easter themed one. It's super, you're absolutely right. It's great for small quantities of yarn. Carol said it's adorable. Yeah, thank you, you guys. So just fantastic. I'll just take it off. It is warm. We do have the air conditioning running. We've got tons of smoke right now from a big fire that's just east of us in a place called Hope, and which Hope is like the gateway to the rest of the province. I've talked about this before. Anyhow, there's a massive fire there. So we've had really poor air quality for the last few days. But with that, we've had sort of like this, it's not muggy, but the air is, it's heavy. And so we've been running the air conditioning a little bit because we want the filter to run. So it's not like we're cooling the house, it's just the filter. So I'll put the other camera on. and you guys can see. So the Jacob, just for those who are new or haven't followed this content or haven't seen this content, if you go back to this time last year, the breed and color study that we were doing at the time was Jacob, and there was white, gray, and black Jacob, and then Katrina had dyed these beautiful colors. They were sort of like a faux rainbow kind of, and the idea behind them was joy. And bringing joy into our lives, bringing joy through color after such a challenging year and a bit. And, you know, there was still a lot of unknowns. Omicron was just hitting, and we were all sort of still in the, you know, what's this going to look like, and what's this going to look like for Christmas, and so on and so forth. And so Katrina wanted to create something that summer, July through December, that would just brighten everybody's spinning wheels, basically. And so I did all of this on my support spindles. And the way that I did it was I took all the little nests of fiber that Katrina had carded up for us. She had a kit where it was the white and then all these little nests of color. What I did was I made roll eggs, and you guys can go back and watch this content. I can link it later in the Slack channel for you guys if you want. And I'll try to remember to throw it into the Patreon post as well. I made these roll eggs that were half the natural color of the Jacob, and then I added strips on the blending board of the different colors to make the like faux rainbow. I'm putting that in quotes, like the faux rainbow. And I had enough fiber to do that 3 times. So if I show you on this, I know it's smaller, but you can sort of see that the repeat is 3 times. Anyhow, what I did with the scarf was when I knew, because I knew this was divided into 3, and I knew that there were 3 of these color sections, I knew that when I got roughly to here, that this was roughly the middle of the skein. And she talks in the pattern like you can weigh your skein, and then that's when you need to start your decreases because you're at the middle of the little scarf. Anyhow, I knew that I was sort of at the middle when I got here, and so then I just, you know, started the decreases and worked my way all the way to the end. And you can see that the edge is finished off with this lovely I-cord. See if the camera will adjust for me holding it closer. Oh. Huh. I pushed the wrong button. Sorry, guys. How can you tell I haven't done this for a while? So you can see that the I-cord there at the bottom, you work your I-cord on both the beginning and the end of every row. And that's what creates that lovely I-cord. And I've already woven in the ends because actually I just need to wash and finish this. I just didn't want to leave it wet when we were leaving for Toronto, just in case the house was cool and it didn't dry properly. So I'm always worried about damp wool and mold and stuff now that we've had clothes moths. Now I'm like super paranoid. So now I need to make more. Christine, I didn't say what the pattern was. Thank you so much for reminding me because I was going to throw it into the chat. It is the Sophie scarf by Petite Knit. I think I said it, but I meant to throw it into the chat at the same time and I didn't. So Sarah says it's definitely a wardrobe staple for the winter. It fits in your pocket. Florence, I am like counting on that. My rain jacket has massive pockets. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to tuck this in there and I'll just leave it in there and hopefully have an opportunity to make a couple more. What else? Yeah, so Kristen made, hers was from Gregoria Fibers and it also had 2 sizes. And actually I have the one that Kristen made saved in my queue because I thought it'd be kind of fun to make some different patterns. And the Gregoria one is called the Telma scarf. And that's the one that Kristen made. And it's got a beautiful all over lace pattern. And so I would highly recommend that you guys go and check that out. And I threw that in the live chat as well, the links in the live chat. So hopefully you guys will be able to follow those if you're interested in more. So yeah, I just thought it was like a fun little project to work on. So the other thing that I've been working on is my Metamorphic. So this is all of the yarn here. This was the Baby Doll South Down that I had spun from Small Bird Workshop. And this was the Baby Doll South Down fleece. So it was a crossbreed basically. And then she had it done at the mill with some Tussa silk. So there was Tussa silk thrown into this, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And actually, Catherine wanted some, who's the owner and curator and operator behind Smallbird. She wanted some feedback on this blend. And I'll talk about it in the actual sweater, because I don't think that I would have noticed it in the knitting if I hadn't have first, sorry, I wouldn't have noticed it in the yarn if I hadn't have knitted with it right away. It would have been something that I would have discovered later, or not at all if I'd never used the yarn. So I'll talk about that blend, the Tussa being in there, in just a minute. And then the contrast color for Metamorphic, and I'll show you a picture of Metamorphic in just a minute, because I tend to try to show you guys the big projects that I'm working on, like the actual project photos, so that you guys can see them on the show rather than having to link to an outside link on Ravelry. But the color that I put with this, because it's a 2-color, you can see it in the back, it's a 2-color sweater, is Falkland. So this is West Coast color Falkland, and Lynn doesn't call her colorways anything. So like when you look at the website, you're looking for a Grello. And this, she pours the dye on. I actually really like her colorways because it's easy to mix them up. My hair's caught in there, sorry. It's easy to mix them up and to make them, your yarns kind of look a little bit more, I was going to say analogous, but sort of homogeneous is the word that I'm looking for. This is a relatively analogous colorway, but like we talk about in the Spinning Pearls content this month for analogous color, because we're talking about analogous color in the teaching content this month that's available over on Patreon if you join. The teaching content is for everybody that is sort of from the spinning circle up. It's not for the very, very, like the $1 a month tiers, but from $3 up, the coffee circle, the spinning circle, etc. You get access to all of the teaching content every month. And I talk about this month, when we talk about spinning analogous color, what is true analogous. And this set colorway, this sort of group of fiber that I bought together and spun together from West Coast Color, it has brown in it. And technically brown is a combination of red, yellow, and blue, which just in and of itself, if you're really being nitpicky, makes this not an analogous color, because you have all 3 of the primary colors. So if you want to spin a true analogous color, you would take the brown out of here and you would be left with only the yellows and the greens. You can see that this is reading as very yellow, but it's actually more of like a grello, a really, really green color. So we get into kind of the weeds about that in this month's content when we're talking about analogous color. So, oh, Suzanne says, you must be desensitized to wool of all kinds, because I don't think I could wear the Jacob around my neck like that. I admire that and I wish I could. You know, to be honest with you, Suzanne, I think that actually it's one of those things that you get used to. You have to work it up. So the more you do it and the longer you do it for, the more desensitized you get. And I think it really is one of those things that you just get used to. And I always keep in the back of my mind, it will soften even more as it mixes with the natural oils in your skin. So it's almost like you're reintroducing lanolin, kind of. I find that stuff gets softer and softer the more that you wear it. So if you can kind of withstand those first few wears where it feels a little bit itchy, you will get used to it. It just takes time. Yes, that is true, Eve. She says the effing Pantone. So I don't have that yarn here with me, but it was the color of Pantone Blue was this color at the beginning of the pandemic that Pantone came out and said, this is the color of the year. And then of course, COVID hit. And so when Lynn was dyeing, she was trying to make that colorway, or like make that blue in her dye, and it wasn't coming out perfectly, and she was super, super frustrated, and like COVID was hitting and everything was locking down, and she called it effing Pantone. So yes, that is true. Anyhow, that is the yarn. So let me show you what the original Baby Doll Southdown looked like, because this was the original yarn. So I wanted to talk about this tussa that's blended into it. So the Baby Doll Southdown fiber itself, when I was spinning it, I spun it all long draw, I spun it all tons of air, really light, really swooshy. Like, look at that bulk, it just jumps right back. And the yarn came out at quite consistent, considering that, you know, there was areas where it didn't necessarily want to draft quite as evenly as others. And I was trying not to let the singles get too skinny, because I wanted a yarn that would knit up nicely on roughly a 4mm needle. So, and I didn't do a ton of sampling and stuff. I only had 200 grams of this. I was pretty sure that I wouldn't purchase any more, because I'm trying to spin through my stash. And I wanted to finish off with a yarn that would knit up on 4mm needles really nicely, something between 14 and 16 wraps per inch. This is a little bit finer, but we'll talk about that when we get to the swatching. And I pre-drafted it all. I did not strip it down. This was true roving. So it's all, you know, disorganized, nothing was parallel, etc., etc. But if you look really closely in the photo to my left, your right, I don't know, it's there on your screen, you can see it. If you look really closely at the fiber, you can see those little zigzags in the fiber that are brighter white. That's the tussa. So some of it got blended in really super nicely and some of it didn't. And I probably wouldn't have let it bug me, and I certainly didn't see it particularly in the yarn, but when you're spinning long draw, once you get the hang of it, you spin quite quickly. And it's funny looking at the yarn now, like I can see places where the tussa is there, and it gives it a really nice sheen, because the Baby Doll Southdown is downy, it's chalky, it's not there's no sheen to it particularly, and you put the tussa in there and it does have a sheen. It makes it even a little bit softer, which is saying something, because it already was soft fiber. Like, this is really soft. Suzanne, you could wear this against your neck for sure. But when you knit with it, and I'll go to the big camera so that you guys can see, this is when, and you're not going to see this on the camera, but we haven't had Diana on the show for a while, so we have to welcome her back. She hasn't been on for a bit. But if you see, like right there, there's a big white blob there, and I don't know if on the live stream you'll be able to see the detail necessarily, but right up there, there's a blob of white. And I'm just pulling up the pattern so I can reference it. And there's a couple of other places down in the ribbing where you can really see. And again, you guys probably aren't going to be able to see on the live stream necessarily, but there are places in here where there's big white blobs. And there were a couple of places in the sweater itself, and I ended up actually using my nail and I pulled it out. I was tempted to pull out this one. I haven't done it yet. I probably will. But it was really too bad. There were definitely places where it wasn't as nicely blended. So before I talk about, so that was kind of too bad. So before I talk about the sweater and the actual knitting, let me show you the actual sweater itself. So this is Andrea Mowry, for those who don't know. She is a lovely human being, which I know many of you know. And, this is the sweater. So hers, it's funny because without actually meaning to, our versions look very similar, because I chose a yarn that just happened to be very similar in color to the yarn that she used for her sample, which was totally not planned at all on my part. And then she used a darker gray on her hems and for the contrast color. And I think it's really effective. I really, really, really like it. But I also really like the lighter gray as well. So, you know, I think both really works. My yarn is a little bit browner and a little bit has more yellow in it, whereas hers has a little bit more blue. But again, like, this pattern is so adaptable. Like, you could use any handspun as your background color. In terms of like the colors, you know, if you put a really super brightly colored braid, if you had a few in your stash and you spun them all up as your second color, you're actually knitting on the right side. So let me show you. This is the right side of the sweater, but you actually knit on the inside, on the wrong side of the sweater. So this is actually, and I think if you were to weave in your ends really beautifully, you could totally wear this as a reversible sweater. Nobody would ever see that middle seam. Nobody looks that closely at people's clothing, and you could totally wear this as the other way around. But yeah, like if you had a really cool set of braids that just the colors were so super amazing and maybe a bit brighter than you normally would wear, and you just really loved it, you could totally use this, because on the sort of looking at the pearl side of the fabric, it just kind of takes it down a notch and just kind of neutralizes it a little bit. I think it's really lovely. This is the first time in a long time that I felt inspired to make something. And you can see, like, here's the original yarn next to it. Like, you can see how it's just really taken it down. It's just muted it, dulled it a little bit, made it a little bit more neutral. It's already neutral, but even more neutral. I really like it. And I still have the sleeves to do. So I cast this on when we got on the plane to go to Toronto, and I actually knit all the way to like here on our trip. So I've only done this in the last week since we've been home, and I was really trying to finish the ribbing before today's show, but I just couldn't get it done. It's 3 inches and I didn't have a chance. It's kind of like what was happening before. I just haven't had a lot of time to sit and knit. So because I knew that we were going to be traveling, and because I knew that we were going to be on a plane and we were going to be on the train and going through security repeatedly, when I swatched and when I did my gauge swatch, I did 2 different sizes. So let me just find my place here. So here is the bottom part of the swatch. This part is the bottom and this is the top, which you guys are like, yeah, Rachel, like top, bottom, duh. But this is smaller needles. These are 3.75 millimeter needles, and this is 4 millimeter needles. Now that doesn't seem like a big difference. We're talking about 0.25 millimeter difference. And I have found, I've talked about this before on the podcast, for whatever reason, I find it really difficult to get gauge when I knit Andrea's patterns. We must hold our yarn really differently, or because I'm always trying to substitute hand spun, my yarns must be really super different. I have no idea. But I often have difficulty getting gauge. And so, oh, and you can really see the white chunks. See, there's one there. There's a whole bunch in there. You can really see the chunks. If I sort of shift it around a little bit, there's a bunch up there. See how that BFL comes through? And actually Christine says that she had a BFL silk fiber that she spun, and she picked out the clumped silk because she thought it was too noticeable. So yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things. Ruth says, won't it compromise the structure of the yarn if you pull it out? That's actually why I left this one, is because there's not enough actual baby doll silk down underneath. So what I'll do is I'll graft some of the some yarn, and then I'll pull that out. So 0.25 millimeters for needles doesn't sound like a big difference, but it actually made a huge difference, because I was knitting with these awful needles that I've had forever, and I keep them because of air travel. We used to fly like once every other month because we were constantly going back and forth to Toronto. So these are Knit Picks. They're the acrylic needles. They're clear. You can tell all the sizes that I've been using for the sweater because they're all gone. And actually I can't find my other 3.5 millimeter needle. It seems to be missing. But these are clear, and they're sticky, and they're just not my favorite needles. But for traveling and for air travel, they're brilliant, because they don't, security doesn't even look at them. They went through Mike's bag. My knitting happened to be there. They saw it. They saw the needles. They just kept on going. Whereas I've had them look at wood needles. I've had only a few times, mostly in Europe, but I've had them look at wood needles and kind of look at me and look at the needles and look at my knitting and look at me. And I think if I had protested or if I had said anything, they would have been taken away both times. But both times I just stood there and I just waited, and they let me through. But they said, don't fly with these again. And it's funny because other people have gone through no problem. So I always use my acrylic needles when we're flying now. And like I said, I've been doing this now for, I think I've had these for 15 years. I bought them when they very first came out, which was back in like 2008, 2009, maybe 2007. And I've never had a problem. However, they're awful to knit with because they they just don't feel like a really nice needle like we're all used to, right? Like I wanted it with my Chow Goos and my Addies and my Likies, you know. But because they are finicky and because they affect how I knit, I knew that it would be 6 1/2 does the other between the two gauges. So the 4mm gauge gave me 23 stitches per inch and the 3.75 gave me 22 stitches per inch. So that was how close it was. And the pattern is 22 stitches per 4 inches, sorry, per 4 inches, not per inch. So that was enough to go down to 3.5mm needles, which is a US size 5. The pattern calls for US size 6, which is a 4mm needle, but with the gauge swatching, I did have to go down to 3.75s. And then the ribbing I'm doing on 3.5mm needles, I probably should have gone down to 3.25 or even 3, but honestly, like I don't have any other needles that are smaller than 3.5s in this set. And, you know, it just felt like at that point you're getting like too small. So thank you for listening to me wax poetic about all of that. I haven't been able to tell anybody any of that because nobody's interested in my personal life. Like Mike doesn't want to hear about it and the kids certainly don't care. So I was able to tell you guys. So thank you for listening. And then as soon as we got home for the ribbing, I flipped over to my wooden needles. So Greta says from Mexico, they will take your needles. It's funny, Greta, because I flew through Mexico with these and I was fine. But on a previous trip, I had flown through with my metal needles on our way to South America. And I think if I had said anything, they would have been taken away. But it was the middle of the night. We were the only ones going through security and he let me keep them. But he said, don't bring these through again. So on our way back, I checked them. But yeah, absolutely. Rebecca says, I would love to do those stripes with the Weekender silhouette. Absolutely, because I think that drop shoulder and that aesthetic would really suit this. I think that would be fantastic. And somebody in the community did that. I feel like it was Dion. She did the Weekender and stripes and it looked awesome. Dana says, your sweater is looking really great. Thank you, Dana. I am partially making it because of you. You were my inspiration. So Kristen was my inspiration for my neck scarf and Dana was the inspiration for this. She had did it and posted it and I couldn't find it because I was so excited to share it in community participation and then I couldn't find it for the life of me. Anyways, Dana's version is amazing. So if you don't follow her on Ravelry, T28 Girl, and she also posted it on Instagram. So definitely have a look. Jenny, good to see you. I showed a photo of us earlier in the show, Jenny, so you want to go back and watch earlier. Christine says, I've always found my knitting is looser with my Knit Picks acrylic tips. I think it's because there's a bit more stickiness between the needle and the yarn. I would agree with that, Christine. I think my gauge is a little bit, I always need to tighten up a little bit too. Yeah. Dion says she's being brave and she's taking her Chow Goo minis. Okay, good luck, Dion. I hope everything goes well. Maybe you can mail them to yourself if they take them away. Oh, Shauna, she said, Mexico made me take out my Chow Goo needles and I had to watch them throw them in the trash. Oh, that's heartbreaking. Dana had to go down to a size 5 with her sweater as well. So that's good to know. I think Andrea is, I think she must be a tight knitter. I should ask her. I should send her a message and ask her. Because I always find that I have to go quite a bit smaller with my needles. So I wonder if she's a really tight knitter. Amanda says every place is different and it is always at the discretion of the security person. Some people have had issues with the cables of circular needles too. Yes, I've heard that. Yeah, it's so true. It just depends on where you're flying and what you're doing. And I think sometimes it depends on the person that you get. Like, you know, they were really good in Vancouver and then Toronto they were, you know, a little bit more grumpy, but they were fine with us with the kids. And I think it depends on the people that are going through and how much attitude they're getting. And, you know, it's a new world. All right, so that is Metamorphic. Thank you for letting me wax poetic about it. And Diana, my Diana doll hasn't been on the show for a long time, so it's good to have her back. It's funny when I can't remember who said it. Somebody had mentioned it quite a while ago now, like I want to say like at least a year or more ago, maybe even a couple of years. They had said, oh, Becca, I'm sorry that you've got a headache. Go rest. they had said that every single show she's in the background, and I went back and I looked, and it's true. It was when we hit episode 200 and I did like the montage of all the shows. Diana's in the background of like every show, which is kind of cool. So we've changed rooms over the years, and we've changed the parts of the house that I'm recording and what it looks like and whatnot, but she has been consistently in the background, which is kind of cool. All right, I think I have waxed poetic about my projects enough. The one last thing that I wanted to say was about the M's and O's. What I ended up doing, and I will talk about this on a future episode of Welford Weaves, I just made myself sit at the loom and weave these off. And the reason why I made myself sit there and do it is because you're changing threads every 12 rows. And it's just labor intensive. So I have more than 10 shuttles just that I've been able to collect over time. And so I put a bobbin of each color into every single one of my shuttles so that I could just weave through the 10 or 11 of them and then put them back. I had this system. I put them all on one side of me in my bench, and I wove through them all and slowly moved each shuttle to my left side. And then once I got to the left side, I moved them all back to my right side so that they would like reverse their order again. And then I wove through them all. And they're all at random. It's not in like a specific order, but you can see that like, you know, I got the yellow 3 times, and you know, there's the lighter blue in there in different places. Anyhow, I ended up getting, in the end, this towel is the last towel. It was a little bit short. So I'll use that as a little hand towel in the bathroom. But I did get, I think it's 4 or 5, 2, 3, 4 full-size towels off of the warp. And this is all M's and O's. This is not washed and finished yet. And this was a practice, kind of a practice run, if you will, for my GCW Guild of Canadian Weavers M's and O's challenge that I want to do, and that is going to be done in Handspun. I've already spun the yarn for it. I just need to actually like do the weaving, and I just was feeling a bit burned out on M's and O's for a bit, and so I thought, well, I'll finish these up. I'll work on some other projects for a while, and then I'll come back to this. So I zigzagged each end, and I will cut off all of these thrums at the back so that I can save them for ties for on warps. And because I've been making tons of warps, I've actually made several warps that are ready to go on the loom, but they're not quite, like I'm not quite ready for them, but I have them ready to go. And just keeping meticulous notes and making sure that I've got everything written down so I know exactly what the warp is, what it's for, what the project is, what the set is. And I did finish, I do have some big news. I did finish my Unit 3 for the Ontario Hand Weavers and Spinners Master Weaver, because I'm still kind of working on both, trying to decide which one I'm going to focus on. And that has been submitted and it's being marked as we speak. So Unit 3 is off my plate, and I'll share more about that once it's back and it's marked. So that's it. What I love about these towels, actually, Christine says love in the colors, love the random color pattern. I just wanted to use up bobbins that were kind of at the end, and I wanted something super neutral. So from a distance, these are really neutral. They're kind of a bit, you're looking at them up close, so you see the black and the dark brown and stuff in there. But once they're washed and finished, because I did quite a bit of sampling on this warp so that I knew what I would want to do for my GCW. Once the O's bend and become O's and the M's bend and that ribbing tightens up, the ribbing in here, it tightens up and it becomes really like M's and then these O's. With the bending of the blocks, it loses its stripiness and it becomes a little bit more grid-like, if that makes sense. So I'm excited to share those with you guys. Rebecca says, I just love them, all your colors together. Thank you so much. This is totally my color palette. If anybody's ever wondering, this is my color palette. Jackie says, congratulations, loving those colors. Congratulations. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, everyone. Those would look lovely in my kitchen. Yes, Sam, I'm sure they would. I actually have some half-draw towels. That's a pattern by Ariana Funk. They're available on the Just Yarns website. I have those on the loom right now because I'm trying to put together enough stuff that I have a few towels ready for December for gifts and whatnot. I'm not going to do a ton of gifts or anything this year. I'm just going to take that pressure off myself, but I do want a few just laying around so that they're ready to gift. So there are those on my spring upstairs. And then I've got a Stashed Crackle Pop Crackle towels going on to my jack. More half-draw towels that'll go on to the spring once the ones that are on there are done. And I have a little kind of sampler, bookmark size, so 3 inches by about 9 inches, like bookmark size. Just a little sampler for of Huck that I kind of lost my train of thought. Why was I telling you this? Oh, and that's on my Louette Jane, on my little table loom. And it's just to work through all the different threading that's available with 4-shaft Huck. Because I have kind of this like little background idea that I would like to do an 8-shaft Huck project, but I'm kind of torn because I would really like to do a Huck spot with some yarn that I bought back in this early spring, late winter from Sanjo Silk that's been burning a hole in my head because I can't get it out of my head. And I'm thinking I was originally going to do a big piece of fabric and do a garment. But then I saw something, my friend Barb Mitchell, if you don't follow Barb, she's Spin Weaver Barbara. Spin Weaver. Let me just find her so that I can show you. So I'll link her website in the live chat. If you don't follow Barbara, she's incredible. Spinweaverbarbara.com. She had brought a piece to a workshop that I did this past weekend that was on the laces, and the laces, the woven laces aren't like these. I'm not like super excited about them, but every time I see them, I feel inspired. So I've decided that when I feel inspired by one of the laces and by one of the structures, then I'm going to go with it. Because if I keep doing that repeatedly over the years, I'll become more and more knowledgeable and proficient with the laces, even though it's not something that I've ever felt like I want to spend a lot of time studying. Does that make sense? So I've been really trying to understand exactly how Huck works, because I did that blanket / scarf thing a couple of years ago with my Advent yarns, and I was really disappointed with how it came out after because I didn't really understand how Huck worked. And now I feel like I have a much better understanding of how it works and how the mechanics that happen at the loom. And because we spent the whole weekend talking about laces, because that's what Barbara did for our workshop for our guild, she showed this project that was Huck Spot. And so I was playing around in Fiberworks with all the different kind of tie-ups and all the different things, and I was like, this, instead of doing enough for a garment with that yarn, I could actually do just a beautiful stole with that yarn, like something really luxurious, and that I think would be a really, really nice use of that yarn. So I've kind of got this like idea brewing at the back of my head. Brittany, she just said, will you be attending Knit City? I'm vending this year. Of course I'm attending. Yes, that would be amazing. Okay, I can't wait to see you. I think that is it for sort of this part of the show. We should probably go into community participation because it gets so late and we talk and talk and talk and talk, and I talk and talk and talk, and then of course, you know, we're at the end of the show and I haven't done community participation. So let's pivot a little bit from woven lace and M's and O's and master weaver certificates and all of that kind of stuff, and let's go into community participation, and we will continue this conversation over in Welford Weaves as I'm able to record episodes and wax poetic about my weaving over there. And if you have not heard of Welford Weaves before and you don't know what it is, it's on this channel. It premieres on the Tuesdays that are opposite the live stream, so, and not always. It's when I have an opportunity to record an episode and get one up. But I do schedule them as premieres. They're public. You don't have to be part of Patreon for them. And they come out when I'm able to produce them, and they're always the opposite week to the live stream. And also, before we go into community participation, we have another stream next week to keep us on our schedule of the first and third Tuesday of every month. So we kind of have 2 shows back to back, which is sort of exciting. I don't know what I'm going to share because I've shared everything today, but maybe there will be something new. You never know. All right, I will see you on the other side. The credits didn't roll, so just give me a second here, because I really like when the credits roll, but they're not going to roll properly. Oh, that's too bad. I had checked it before and they were working fine, but I guess not today. Not today, friends. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning because this should have been up here. I was fixing things before we started. Lisa says, I've always wanted to make curtains out of woven lace, and yet I do not, but I want to. You should. That would be awesome. I think 2022 is the year of not getting much finished for many of us. I finished 1 sock, I cast on a second, and I'm hoping to finish it by 31 December. You know what's so funny? And Eve says, I finished a hat. Show off. I feel the same way about 2022. I have not felt super inspired in the same way that I have in previous years. And I think it's just an overarching feeling of fatigue for many of us. And that's okay. That's where we are. All right, so you've been sitting here staring at this screen. So this is all of our alongs that we have going in the community. There are a lot. I am going to spend some time this fall, now that I have Rebecca helping and on board, because as many of you know, we made big announcements throughout August about Rebecca coming on board. So if you don't know about all of that, it's linked in the show notes, patreon.com/woolenspinning. With Rebecca coming on board, it'll free me up a little bit to kind of just clean all of this up. I think that we're going to put to bed the natural shades along, the luxury fibers along. Our breeding color study will be finishing in December, so that's going to kind of get cleaned up, if you will. And I think it's just an opportunity to sort of, simplify a little bit. We've been doing 0 to hero for a really long time. I think in some ways that could just pivot to sort of sweater spin, garment spin, sort of an overarching feeling rather than like having another along. You guys know where to share all of this stuff. It's all pretty clear, and you can always have a look at this. This graphic, this chart is in all of the ketchup and pickles housekeeping posts that come out around the 15th of every month and help you just navigate where to go and where to find stuff. So if you have any questions, please post a comment either here on YouTube or on Patreon, because I'll get back to you. And if I don't get back to you right away, somebody will see it and will answer your question, either me, Rebecca, or other people. So yeah. All right, so our sock color study has been hosted by Rebecca. Rebecca is, you can find her on the Slack channel is @RebbyJ. She's also on Ravelry. She's also my other half now. So when I talk about Rebecca and who and sort of, the stream that Rebecca did, or the staplers, that spinning group that Rebecca runs, this is who I'm talking about. This is Rebecca. So, which I always do a happy dance every time I talk about that. But she's been kind of spearheading this spin along. She started it at the beginning of the year. It's been really fantastic. And this is from Yelena. I finished knitting socks out of Crafty Jack's Lakeside. So this was one of the colorways that was developed way back for one of our Finn breeding color studies. And I want to say this was back in like 2017. And this was based on a photo that I had actually submitted that we took by Moose Lake in northern British Columbia. So that's a great idea, Lisa. She says maybe 0 to hero should just be a hashtag. I love that. Yes, 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 yes. This is from a crepe plied yarn. The cuffs are from a chain plied leftover singles since I wasn't sure if I'd fall short on yardage. This is a fractal spin, but I'm surprised that few of the colors lined up to give a solid stripe. Maybe the 2-ply strand eats up more yardage than the 3-ply, than that 3rd ply, offsetting how the colors lined up. That's really interesting. I wonder. In some ways that would make sense because the 2-ply, those 2 plies like come tighter and tighter together depending on how tightly you plied. But in some ways it doesn't because the 3-ply is wrapping all the way around. So it would depend, like you'd have to really look at your yarn. I suspect actually that 3rd singles that wraps around for the crepe would actually probably use up more yardage. But I don't know. It's a beautiful, beautiful effect to those socks though. Love that. Yeah. If you're, oh, Eve, I just don't even know what to say. Eve's like, Rebecca, if you're Rachel's other half, does that make you Mrs. Welford or the mistress? So Rebecca says, no, that Welford Jr. I don't even care. I just am so excited to have her on board. She can be whatever. The crepe plying is so interesting. It is such a great reminder that I want to try this. Yes, so Rebecca, this is actually one of my favorite yarns. I think the crepe is always so beautiful, and I think it was my friend Diana Twist. She blogs over at 100milewear.com. You have to go check her out too if you haven't already. She's very active on the Slack channel. She made a crepe yarn. I think it was Diana. It was beautiful, beautiful. Eve says I can't retire natural shades because she has endless white Romney, endless white BFL, and endless fawn Shetland to spin. I think we could fit those in other alongs, Eve. All right, this is from Rebecca herself, cross-posted from the Breeding Colors study thread. I finished spinning the analogous blue-green Radnor top, and I made it into 2 sock skeins. The first one was just split into 8ths, spun, and then chain plied. The second one is a 3-ply fractal. I love both of these. I think they're both incredible. Someone mentioned recently that chain plying is less forgiving than traditional plying, but I've never noticed as big a difference before as I did between these 2 skeins. It's pretty incredible. Maybe my singles were not as consistent as I thought, or maybe the Radnor was not as forgiving. It does not have the poof factor of the fine wool for sure. The chain ply also ended up with way more ply twist, which actually you can see in her skein. If you look at the top of the photo, you can see the curly cues. So I'll have to keep a closer eye on that. Thankfully, I'll get another chance as I plan to spin the other braid the same way. I can't wait to see the 4 skeins together. Beautiful. Crepe plying is so interesting. Sounds like a question for science. Absolutely. Good to see you, Jackie. Thank you for being here. Spindle Spun Summer is coming to a close. We will be finishing up the evening of the autumnal equinox. And I think what this has kind of become is an opportunity for us just to celebrate all things spindles all summer. Many of us are out and about, we're traveling, we're camping, we're looking for smaller projects to take with us and go. I know I spent a lot of time at the soccer field this summer, and that's how I got a lot of my spinning done because I didn't want to have heavy knitting on my lap and be sitting on the ground. So I got a lot of suspended spindling done, which I haven't really shared with you guys, but it's just more of my endless cornmeal. And so I think this is something that we're going to do every summer. We had tried to keep it going throughout the winter last year and turned it into spindle spun stitches. But I really like this idea of shining an intentional spotlight on something for a while and then allowing it to sort of naturally go into the background a little bit and then pulling it back forward again and really shining that light on it again. I know for those who are down under and in the southern hemisphere, it should be like spindle spun winter, but so we could change it to spindle spun stitches and have that come forward in the summer as sort of our spindle spinning that we do sort of from the summer solstice to the evening of the autumnal equinox. But I definitely think this is something that rather than trying to keep it going as an along all the time, I want it to be something that we intentionally focus on for the summer, those 3 months of the summer, and then it kind of goes to the background and then comes forward again. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. So this is coming to a close over the next week When is the autumnal equinox? Is it on the 21st of September? I can't remember off the top of my head. So I have never taken a drop spindle on the airplane, Dion, but I have taken a Turkish, my 3D printed, and I was fine. So this is from Sam. Today is cast on day for my first support spindle spun yarn. The fiber is October 2021 from Hilltop Cloud. TTC, what does that stand for again? Top of the month, top of the cloud, I can't remember. And this is 50% Corriedale, 25% bamboo, 20% South American wool, and viscous tweed neps. I love this yarn, Sam. I think it turned out really beautifully. She plied it on her Magicraft Rose, and it came out as a 2-ply sport, 282 meters. Planning to make a hat, my first pattern from this designer. Looking forward to seeing how it knits up. And thanks you guys for the inspiration and encouragement, particularly to Diana and Ange. Yes. Always happy to enable. And beautiful yarn. It's funny actually, Sam, because we are twinsies, because this was my first support spindle spun yarn too. So we're twinsies. We both have a project that we've done out of our first yarns that were support spindle spun. This is from Christine. There's some silly things happening in the chat. I'm trying to follow along and I can't because I have to talk to you guys. This is from Christine. Happy birthday to me, love from me. Although my birthday is actually tomorrow. Happy birthday, Christine. This beauty is from the Spindle Shop, was delivered this morning and was well worth the wait. The Spindle Shop spindles are beautiful. I don't have any, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, but beautiful spindles. One day I would like to get one of their support spindles. I know Diana has a couple and oh, they're just amazing. Beautiful. This is from Kristen. I thought this was just amazing. Pulled some Jacob from stash for the maiden voyage of my, I think it's Diaval from the Spindle Shop as well. So this is one of the spindles that I would love to have from the Spindle Shop, like this style, I mean. I really love this spindle and it's taking every ounce of self-control not to go buy another one. I don't need another one, but the want is strong. This is also my first time spinning Jacob, roving from a tiny little backyard mill local to me. Isn't that beautiful? Her spinning is just incredible. Bye, Dion. Good to see you. Oh, the Time Traveler Club. So the TTC is the Time Traveler Club. I wanted to call it the Toronto Transit Company. The TTC is the transit, is what the transit in Toronto is called. The Toronto Transit Company. So every time I see TTC, I'm like, I wonder what that means. All right, this is from Ange. Look at this color. This is why Ange's username and her her username is her Ravelry name or Slack name, all of it. It's always Rainbow Ange. Like, look at this color. It's been a while since I've joined in here on Slack, but it's not been the best mental health year for me, and I found it difficult to keep up with everything. But after some gentle prodding from Eve, I'm going to do my best to get back into the swing of things here. I wanted to say when I was reading this, I think that this fatigue that many people are experiencing and this kind of just down regulation, I think it, you know, we've been living in this environment in the world that's been really hard, you know, regardless of the side of the fence that you're on with COVID and vaccines and all and masks and all the stuff. You know, it's been really, really challenging for people. And I think we have to take a step back and just recognize that. So yeah, it's okay. Of course we would feel this way. And of course we would feel tired. And like, how could we not after the year that the few years that we've had? And I really appreciate your honesty and that you took the moment to just acknowledge that and not just say, here's some yarn that I've been working on. So thank you for sharing. I thought I'd start by sharing my summer spindle spinning project. 24 mini skeins of merino nylon purchased at a fiber event last year and mostly spun up through July and August on my little collection of 3D printed spindles. Amazing. Everybody's saying, holy cow, Ange, this is amazing. Wow, wow, wow. I agree, you guys. Let's lift her up. This is from Diana. Oh, Diana's spinning is just incredible. Getting back into the practice of spinning 15 minutes a day is so therapeutic. And Diana's got several classes on the School of Sweet Georgia, so please be sure to check her out because she's one of my dear friends and Oh, she's so talented. So good to see her sharing her work too. I've mentioned her several times on the show too. I know she's working on Tuesday afternoon, so she can't be here. Normally, if it Saturday morning, she was always able to be here, and so supportive, so encouraging. Amanda says, and your work is beautiful. Thank you for sharing how you're doing. Absolutely. So this is just like our general makes and shares. This is from the Slack channel, but as well as the Ravelry group. And this is from Crystal. This was so cool. I feel like I've only been spinning art yarns, and I decided I needed a palette cleanser. So I dug up some merino yak and silk from Goody Supply Co. and planned to spin it as a fingering weight 3-ply. The real reason for this post though is the conversation about control cards in the first wool circle video. So I totally forgot because life. But I had actually meant to be sure to link the wool circle video, because it was the one that Rebecca did first. The very first one we did as a premiere, and I made it public so that everybody could watch it and could see it and sort of get a feel for Rebecca and who she is and how she podcasts and all that kind of stuff. So I've linked it in the live chat for those who missed it. And the Wool Circle is a tier on Ravelry. You just have to look for the Wool Circle. And it's a bi-monthly stream. It's pre-recorded, but we run it as a live stream so that there can be a chat. I'm curious about what other people do and what they choose to include on their control cards. So Crystal's method is she uses ginormous tags, and she includes some basic information about the fiber, the wheel, along with the drafting method. And at the bottom, she has samples of the singles and the plied yarns under tension. When I do 3-plies, I always include a 2-ply. It's easier to ply test, to do the ply test, the ply back test. Absolutely. I also keep a balanced sample tied to the top of the tag and hang it off the back of my wheel for easy access and safekeeping. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Crystal. Okay, I lost my place, so I have to find it again. There we go. This is from Dion. Good day, everyone. I'm soaking up the last bits of summer in the Midwest USA and playing with this gorgeous Rupert's Corrie del Lamb fleece. I left the smallest bit of lanolin in it, and what a dream it is to spin. As you can see, it's very fluffy and true white, and I absolutely love my new lock pop. Mine finally came. It was lost in the mail for about 3 months, but mine did actually finally come. I just haven't had a chance to play with it, so. This is from Eve, and my Tour de Fleece yarn became a hat. Yay! Amazing. Beautiful. This is from Caitlin. Finally spun all of my alpaca silk top. I ended up with 4 skeins and 110 yards of light fingering lace weight yarn. It was a huge learning experience. It's my first time spinning silk, first time spinning blended fiber, and also one of my first spins using a wheel. That's amazing, Caitlin. That's a lot of firsts. The wheel spun yarn has a higher twist angle and more wraps per inch, but I think I will still use it in the same project as the spindle spun yarns. Now to find a pattern. Amazing. Those big cards, Rebecca, you can get them from Staples. And if you, in Rankin Inlet, you don't have a Staples, but if you want, I can send you some. Just let me know. Because I get them in like big boxes, clear boxes like this, and I can tuck some in the mail for you if you want. They last forever. I find I can't use them up fast enough. Crystal says she got hers on Amazon. Yeah. They're shipping tags. If you search for shipping tags, they'll come up. Laura shares, is there a better way to recover from a tough night shift at work than playing with fiber? I don't think so. I think that's pretty much the only way to recover. I took my blending board and some white merino silk, self-dyed mulberry silk, and petrol mystery fiber, and made some cute roll legs. I have no idea what these will become. I don't know, Laura, but they are beautiful. Yeah, I agree, Charlotte. She says the pattern really shows up well. I agree, because this could have been totally lost in the patterning. Like if the hand spun had been really brightly colored or really variegated, that beautiful slip stitch pattern would have been completely lost. But it actually is, this is just perfect. It's just the right amount of interest. Sarah says, I love this, Laura. The pops of color will be gorgeous. I agree. And they'll lengthen out a little bit in the spinning. It'll make like, you know, you'll just get these hits of color as you knit it up. It'll be really, really pretty. This is from Pernille. I actually added this morning because I had finished all of this yesterday. There is so many projects and so much stuff that you guys have shared over the last month. I can't even begin to cover any of it, all of it. So it's been fun to highlight some of it, but Pernille shared this and I wanted to go back to it and to share it. When I started spinning, I got a lot of merino from a lady I hardly know. We kind of follow each other on Instagram, but I got the fiber to play with. It had a lot of bright colors and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. I probably knew, it turns out that the colors can be, I probably knew, but it turns out the colors can be a deal breaker for me. I think that's for a lot of people. I ended up starting to play with dyeing. I used green, blue, and purple, and I divided the dyed wool into 2 piles, one with all of the blue and greens and one with the rest, the brownish and the purplish. Last year I started spinning the blue and the greens, and somewhere along the way I stopped spinning. I remember that because I feel like we shared it on the show, I think. With all of the blues and greens. Last year I started spinning. I looked at the wheel every day, but never really got around to continuing. When my feed got overloaded with Tour de Fleece, I finally sat down at the wheel, and during the last 2 months, including being away from home at vacation, I finished it. So when she says my feed, she means like Instagram. You know, your feed on Instagram, and during Tour de Fleece it always like blows up with spinning photos. It's amazing. I spun as thin as I can, which is kind of what I can. I still feel like a newbie to make a 3-ply, and ended up with 425 grams. If I calculated correct, I have around 1,430 meters and 15 wraps per inch. That's awesome, Pernille. It feels a bit thicker than a sock yarn. It will eventually become a knitted cardigan, and right now I don't know which, so I am in no hurry. I would rather find the right one, and right now with so many other things standing in line to be knitting, I do however look forward to knitting with it. I really like knitting with Handspun. Totally, absolutely, it's the best. Lisa says, I think I may have just drooled because of Laura's pretty merino silk. Absolutely. And the pattern that Eve used for the hat is written for variegated yarn. It's called Field of Wildflowers by Joji Locatelli. I love her patterns. Pernille's yarn up close is like green agate. Is it ever, Christine? That's absolutely right. So thank you so much, you guys, for sharing all you do. I really appreciate that you take time to photograph your stuff and that you take time to post it, because it means a lot. And I know that the community in general just finds so much inspiration from that. And it's really great that you guys are willing to do that. So thank you so much. I told you that there's a live stream again next Tuesday, same time, same place. And the post will go up on Monday, like always, so you'll have the new links. Next Monday, we also have a Wool Circle stream. So for those who are part of the Wool Circle, I was just talking about it. I linked it above in the show notes for you guys to see the most recent one. That one was made public. The rest are for patrons of the Wool Circle. That is at 10 a.m. Pacific on Monday the 19th. And Rebecca goes into a deep dive about measuring yarns. So definitely check that out. I've already looked at the episode and edited it and everything. It's great. So yeah, you guys are, I think you'll learn a lot from that. It's excellent. So that's at 10 a.m. Pacific on Monday the 19th, 12 noon Central and 1 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully you can move your lunch break around a little bit so that you can be there. Those in Europe, it's your evening time. So while you're having dinner, you guys can tune in. And then we've got the live stream the next day, which is really great. Normally they wouldn't be on the same week. It just so happened. No, normally they would be on the same week. Sorry, I'm telling lies. It's just this week that's off because I was off because we were traveling last week. So yeah, I'm probably totally confusing you guys. I'm really sorry. Maker Morning is this coming Thursday, so 2 days from now at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern in the morning, if you guys are interested in joining in on that. So that's on Thursday morning. I'll be posting links tomorrow for you guys so that you know where that goes. Eve, great question. Is the Wool Circle going to be a premiere? No, it will be a live stream and it will only be for patrons of that tier, just like the old days. It's just that it'll be pre-recorded, that's all. But I will be there in the live chat, and if Rebecca can be there, she will be there in the live chat and will be able to answer questions. And please post your questions on the Wool Circle, both in the live chat, in the comments, and on the Patreon post. Any questions about sampling, working through the sampling process, issues that you're running into, thoughts, all of that kind of stuff, please post all those, because that's what Rebecca's going to use to build her future episodes. So if you have questions and you want to know about stuff, ask questions. And thank you for the reminder, Rebecca. The first meeting of the Spinning Staples, the Staplers group, is tomorrow afternoon at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, 12 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. It's very confusing. Anyways, Rebecca's posted in the chat. So for those who are in the Staplers, tomorrow afternoon is your first meeting. I'm excited for you guys. I think it'll be awesome. So yeah, and then it'll be recorded and I will render it and post it after for those who are in that group if you missed the meeting. Just like with queries that we've done in the past. So some of you will be, you've already kind of experienced that and you know what that's like. So, all right, lots of housekeeping to cover with you guys. Keep asking questions. I don't mind ever answering them. I know it's confusing for those who are new to Patreon and are kind of new to the community and new to kind of figuring all of this out. Please just ask questions. Me and Rebecca are happy to explain how things work. So don't ever hesitate to ask. All right, until next week, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy weaving, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, everyone.